Today I will help you to better care of your paddle racket to make it last longer. And the good thing is that it doesn't require that much effort. So here you have 5 easy tips to prevent your rackets from breaking and lose money. Hello top players, I'm Pablo and I welcome you to a new 4Set. When you play a paddle match, this gesture is repeated many times because you don't want to crash down. But there are many different ways to do it. But if I tell you that you can break your racket doing it, would you do it again? It is true that for a tennis racket it's not that dangerous. But yes, I'm not lying when I tell you that doing this thing with your paddle racket can break it. Think that when you lift the ball, you are hitting it flat and the ground acts as a stopper. If you don't have a good technique, you can break your racket. The materials flex too much in the most delicate part of the racket, that is the center. The easiest way to do this with the less damage to your racket is by not hitting the ball straight on. A quick front to back movement and your racket will suffer less. But to understand everything that I'm gonna talk about, first we need to understand how a paddle racket is made. And it all starts on the core, a piece of foam of different densities. On top of the foam, the brands place 2, 3, 4 layers of fiber. It can be fiberglass, carbon fiber or similar. To protect the racket, a tubular that can be made of carbon fiber is placed on the frame around. Although today there are some rackets that don't use tubular, but still is the most common thing. And voila, the only thing left to do with our racket is to paint it. Paddle rackets are very simple, but we wanna prevent them from breaking, so let's go to the second tip. I was saying that the tubular is mainly to protect the racket from impacts. And it is obvious I'm referring to the impacts on the frame of the racket. How many of you see yourselves reflected on this video? Vamos. Whenever we use a new racket, we always try to not hit it against the glass, but that is impossible to avoid. The frame of the racket is one of the weakest areas and where we can have the most problems. For these reasons, the brands usually put a protector that covers this area and helps to absorb the impacts. However, different protectors cause more problems than they solve. For example, some bull paddle rackets incorporate a protector that, to put it, the brand holds the racket. Or in some Adidas rackets, to put an extra weight, they also damage the frame. This does a lot of damage to the frame and to the racket, and it is more negative than beneficial. So my favorite protector is the one used by RACKET. It is a transparent silicone protector which is practically not visible. It is not the most effective, but it does prevent scratching the racket with the wall. Actually, you can buy very similar protectors for 2 or 3 euros in Amazon and they are really worth it. However, if your racket doesn't come with a protector and you are thinking about to put in one, think about 2 things: the weight and the balance. A protector can weigh about 10 grams and that will increase the weight of your racket on top, so the balance will go up. Keep this in mind before putting it on. The third tip to take care of your racket is the easiest one, that is, change the overgrip. The only part of the racket in contact with your hand is the overgrip. Why forget about it? We can lose a lot of points by slipping the racket, getting angry, and all for not changing it. How many and which ones to use? I leave you with this video that I answer all the questions about it. This is the most important part of our racket, but not for the reason you might think. Today I'm gonna give you the 5 most important tips to have the best grip ever. And more important, the best player in the history of paddle is gonna show us his tricks. The 4th tip, very important, is about temperature changes. The properties of our rackets can vary a lot depending on where we play. If we play outdoors in Dubai at 45 Celsius degrees, the racket will be one way. If we play outdoors in Stockholm at 10 degrees, the racket will be a completely different way. Racket materials are affected by the conditions as well as the ball. In hot weather, the ball will bounce more. And with sun and heat, our racket will get very soft, especially if our racket is black, and generally all of them are. The racket materials expand and become softer, and this causes more options for breaking it. That is why some professional paddle players put their rackets on the fridge during the breaks, just to prevent their rackets to become softer. But the main mistake related to all this has to do with something very simple. Never leave your racket in the trunk of your car. Temperature changes will weaken our racket, and the trunk of our car has temperature changes all the time. We don't want the materials of our racket to contract and expand continuously. It is much better to take your racket with you to your home and store it in a dry place out of the sun. If possible, have a bag with thermal material to protect it from temperature changes. It is not a magic solution, but it does help our racket not to suffer so much. Next tip to take care of our racket: watch out for wet balls. And this is vital, believe me. If you don't want your racket to break, don't play with wet balls. I have broken several rackets for doing this, and believe me, it's not something pleasant. Think that the weight of a normal paddle ball is approximately 60 grams. If the ball gets wet, it will increase its weight. This will make it more difficult to pass the ball to the other side, and we will have to use more power. It is very easy to break our racket if we continue playing using wet balls. If the court is wet because of the humidity or because it starts to rain, watch out. Also think that if we play with a wet ball and we don't break our racket, the racket itself will get wet, and humidity can weaken our racket as well as the temperature changes. If for some reason our racket gets wet, when we get home we must dry it, but be careful and don't apply too powerful heat sources. Bonus tip to take care of our racket and very few professional players take into account. Well, because professional players use 14 rackets per year. Can you have that many rackets? I guess no, so for that reason, don't always try to hit the ball with the same side of the racket. And I mean always using the same side of the racket to hit, for example, the forehand, or always using the same side of the racket to hit the backhand. Mainly this is done for two reasons: mania and comfort with the overgrip. By always holding the racket the same way, the overgrip has the shape of the hand and is more comfortable. However, the side of the racket that we use for our forehand will be more used than the one for the backhand. This may cause some fatigue on one side of the racket, and the strokes may not feel the same. Have you learned something new with these tips to take care of your racket? Subscribe to the channel! Thank you everyone for watching the video, leave your comment with your opinion and see you in the next one. Ciao!